Welcome back to the Profit Boss podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in because we have Ruby Fraser from Eat Like Ruby here as a guest. Hello.
Hello. This is exciting.
Yes. So Ruby is the Nutella Queen herself. She is an accredited sports nutritionist, online educator and personal trainer. Ruby has been a client of mine for a few years. And I've watched her take leaps and bounds in her business while also helping thousands of clients along the way. Ruby has built her business through social media platform, mostly Instagram.
I'd say Insta and podcast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, so podcast more recently, but also YouTube now.
Yep.
So all the things. I love Ruby's no bullshit approach to health and fitness. She is passionate about educating and loves to show people that you can diet, but eat your Nutella too. So I just want to jump in and ask Ruby some questions. Being the Profit Boss podcast, it is obviously going to be everything around business. We might throw in a few numbers questions, share from, your business experience.
Yeah, this is exciting because I normally just sit here and talk about calories and training. So this is different. I like it.
So, we're literally recording in the same room that Ruby records her own podcast in. So she's like, oh, I'm on the other side today.
Yeah, I love it.
Tell me, what is your key to success in an industry that is so heavily saturated?
Yeah, I love this. I feel like we're diving straight in.
Oh yeah, we're starting strong.
Yeah, so I have been, and I feel like my difference or my point of difference is I speak about nutrition and training I feel like I speak about nutrition and training in a way that not many people do. And I'm very mindful of the science and the facts and the education, and I love that stuff. That's why I studied it in the first place. But also the real life human being on the other end of it. And I think a lot of nutritionists and trainers can go too far in one direction. I think a lot of them are just all about the science and the facts and just like, this is what you have to do, and if you can't do it, bad luck.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Not for
and
you.
then
Bye.
on the other hand, we sort of get the ones that are really soft and hand-holdy and like, if you can't do it, it's okay. You're busy. You've got things on. And while that's true and that can be great at times, if we always take that approach, we've got to remember people have come to you for results. If you're constantly just telling them, it's okay, you didn't get them this week. They probably feel great at the time, but then at some point they probably turn around and go, well, hang on, I haven't gotten anywhere. So I think there's a real sweet spot with here's the science and the facts and the education and how we can apply it for you and your goal. But then also let's look at you as a human being. Maybe you're a mum, you're a student, you're a shift worker, whatever it is. How do we take that science and everything and tweak it and navigate it in a way that's really going to suit you in your life?
Yeah. So because of that approach, you creating success for your clients has been able to build your reputation in the industry.
Yeah.
Along those lines, something I love about following along your journey is seeing how you have the mentality of not doing a single thing by halves. I see you go all in with everything you set your mind to. How has this shaped your business journey?
Oh my God, I feel like that is my business journey. I'm just all in. Like I love what I do, and I love like I said, the education and the science and the facts of nutrition and training. I also just love building a business, even though it absolutely has its ups and downs and good days and bad days. I always think, what would I do instead? Would I go and stack the shelves at the supermarket? No, I wouldn't.
No.
So I love all the challenges and everything that come with that. And then sometimes, you kind of go through all those things, like I'll work behind the scenes and be building things, and then I'll go through the business and admin side of things, and that can have its ups and downs. And then I come in and actually work with the clients. And I swear to God, my clients have this sixth sense of being like, Ruby's had a stressful day or Ruby's had a bad day. Yeah. And someone will just come through with something that's like, Eat Like Ruby has changed my life. I've done X, Y, Z. I've never had success with this. Like you couldn't ask for a better thing on a better day. And it's like clockwork. Every time I think like, oh my God, business is intense. Like, is it worth it? Within 5 seconds, I get something that's like, yes, it is. Yeah. So I think, I love everything, like everything that's part of the business, and just navigating all of those things is really cool. And then always coming back and seeing someone, again, it's a real life human being on the other end of that. That's just someone saying you've changed my life is like, you sometimes, not to sound, I don't know how it might sound, but like sometimes you kind of skim over that and then you're like, no, there actually is a real person there saying you have changed my life. Like that's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I can understand that at times when especially online, like your business is so built online where it's not necessarily people sitting in front of you that are telling you this. So yeah, I can imagine that you're sort of like, oh, I'm just plugging along. It's been a really hard day. What was this all for?
Yeah.
And then when you hear that feedback from them, it would make it all worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
And on that note of like what I see Ruby do in a day-to-day is like absolutely smash it when it comes to like your actual gym nutrition. When you've got a plan, you stick to that plan. Like I think anyone that follows Ruby knows that. She does what she says she'll do. But on the flip of that, the way that the business is able to have great results is because you apply the same philosophy to your business. Like I obviously am very fortunate to work with lots of different business owners, and Ruby's one of my clients. It's like, hey Tiggs, I'm going to go through every single insurance I have in my business and make sure that it is top tier and I'm covered and I'm doing it well and I'm doing it right and this is what I'm doing. And I'm like, hell yeah. I'm like, I wish all my clients did that. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. Like that's the best.
Yeah. And that actually, I feel like that actually is it, like plan for the worst. I'm always mindful, and I think probably because I've been in business for so long, some things do come up. And like they come out of nowhere and you're like, oh my God, we weren't prepared for this. Yeah. And I'm the biggest believer in like, things like that are going to happen. But when they do, then, obviously navigating it at the time, but then thinking, okay, what is going to be our system if that was to happen again?
Yes.
I think if you're constantly being derailed or thrown off by the same problem,
100%.
At some point you have to intercept and go, well, what do we do about this?
Yes. Yeah, your business can't just be putting out fires every day.
Yeah.
You actually have to plan for the fires and have systems and processes in place to stop them in the first place.
Literally be like, okay, we're on fire and we've got a plan for this.
Yeah. It's all going to come down.
Yeah, literally.
On that note, what are some examples that you can think of where you've made a decision to go all in your business, and what has this sort of led to in terms of opportunity for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like the podcast is probably an example of this. So I've had my podcast for nearly 2 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, and weekly episodes. We're actually about to come up to the 100th. At the end of November, we'll drop the 100th ep, which is really cool.
52 episodes a year.
Yeah, yeah.
Holy.
I know, that is crazy. And when I first started podcasting, I feel like I was probably maybe a little bit naive. We had quite a bit of money in the business at the time. So I was like, yeah, okay, we can invest in that. And obviously, because we do professional podcasting, like I think you could probably do it a bit cheaper on your own, but it'd be a lot harder.
Out of a washing basket or something.
But yeah, I made that initial investment and I honestly kind of thought of it as, I always just thought podcasting was just sort of, you just get on and you rap on about whatever's happening that week and who really cares and whatever. And once we sort of got it up and running, the amount of people that started reaching out and just being like, oh my God, the podcast is so beneficial and so educational. And again, it's changing my life and all these things. And it really started to dawn on me, like obviously I'd built majority of my business on Instagram and that was great. And we had a good following and people were learning and stuff. But there's only so much you can do in an Instagram caption or a story compared to, I do like 45 to an hour podcast every week. So there's so much information and education you can deliver. And education is the number one value in Eat Like Ruby. It's my number one thing. Like I really want people to actually understand how to achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. And so having that space to just go for it for an hour every week and break it down for people, I think I really underestimated how beneficial it is for clients and people on the other end, but then in return, how beneficial that is for business.
Yeah.
Because I think people just hearing me explain and teach things in the way that I do, and like I said before, I feel like it's quite a unique way, then they were just getting almost like that free sort of example of what it's like to be an Eat Like Ruby and what we cover and everything. And then I'd say probably about 3 or 4 months into the podcast, I really started getting people reaching out and going, I joined this program because of the podcast. I bought this thing because of the podcast. And you really start to see the return on that.
Yeah.
And
the conversion.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's probably not the best business thing to say, but that's obviously awesome. But then equally, sometimes people will reach out to me and go, I've never joined anything, but I've listened to every single podcast. I've even got a lady who's in a current program, and she said to me, this is the first thing I've joined, but I've listened to the podcast religiously. I've read every single thing you've ever posted. I lost 27 kilos on my own.
I have goosebumps.
And like, I never knew about this person. Like, she was always just behind the scenes, reading, watching, listening, whatever. And then finally she joined a program that we're running right now. And she said, everything that you've done over the last 3 years, I've just taken it all on board for free. Lost 27 on my own. And then I finally sort of came in for that last little bit. And like I said, if people are doing it all for free, probably not great for business. But that's where I really come back to, like, business is great and progress and profit and all that's great. But like, I didn't do this to be a business person. I did this to help people with nutrition and training. So when I see something like that, I'm just like, yes,
that's
this is great.
Like, motivation, just keep going.
Yeah.
Like, what
and
more
like
free resource can I throw out? Like,
and that really is my why. Like, when people talk about finding your why, I read something like that. And again, you read that on a bad day and you go, oh my God, imagine if I had have tapped out on a bad day.
Yeah.
Like, you're not gonna, but you think about it.
Yeah.
And then you think, my God, how many people are out there like her that just haven't mentioned it or come forward.
Totally.
And
because that's the thing that
keep going.
You preach, right, is that nutrition's not going anywhere for your entire life.
Yeah.
Like, till the day we die, we've got to decide what to eat every day.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will actually die.
Yeah.
So, your education and putting that via podcast in that long form, but also YouTube and the snippets and Instagram as well, like, that will change people's lives.
Yeah.
That education. Wow.
Yeah.
What an impact.
I know. It's pretty cool.
You're like, profit's okay, but I just like helping people.
Literally.
Rubes, what advice would you give to someone starting out in the online fitness and nutrition industry today?
Yeah, I feel like I could give so much advice, but
how long we got?
Literally. I think it sounds so cliche, but I think kind of in line with what I was saying before, like, really find your thing and your niche and speak to that. I think because it is such a saturated industry and there's so many people out there, it's so easy to sort of get caught up in the trends or what everyone else is doing. And that can obviously be great at times, but you don't want to just blend in with millions of other people. Like, if you've got your own niche and your own style, and I think that's probably like a little bit of separate advice. Like, you will have a niche and you will have certain people that are really drawn to you and some that aren't, and be okay with that, because I think sometimes one message that I learned a few years ago, and I think it's so true, is if you're speaking to everybody, you're speaking to nobody. Yeah. So if you're sort of trying to make content that can really speak to everyone and help everyone, which I think comes from the best intentions, you sort of aren't really honing in on the thing that you might do really well. So I think that was a big thing for me over the last few years of just being like, who do I work really well with? What do I teach really well? And equally, what do we not? Yeah. And being okay with that. Yeah. And like, go in on your thing, do your thing really well. And it's probably the same in every industry. Yeah. I always think, it's such a random example, but I always think, like, if you were a hairdresser that was really good at doing dreadlocks and your specialty was dreadlocks, if someone walked in with beautiful blonde hair and was like, can you do my foils? Yeah. It's probably like, oh, technically I might have learnt that at some point, but I probably can't do it that well. No. Like, I've really honed in on this one thing. Do you want to risk someone's beautiful blonde hair?
I can do foils, then create dreadlocks.
Literally. So I think, like, be okay with, or like, really have a think about who is it that you want to help? What is it that you want to teach? And be okay with, like, niching in on that a little bit more. Yeah. And not having to feel like you have to do everything. Because I think even, again, it's probably the same in every industry, like the hairdressers, but in nutrition and training, you're going to get people with so many different goals. Yeah. And I think, you want to sort of work out, what is it that I actually want to do?
Oh, for sure. And that will make business decisions easier.
Yeah.
Because if you are trying to market to everyone, it's going to be more difficult to advertise, more difficult to create your message because you're trying to please Sam, Susan, and Joe. Like, it's just not going to happen. So it's actually going to make business easier for you, which in turn will lead to better results. Yeah. Whether that be profits or numbers or processes. Like,
and I think just enjoyment as well, because I think it's 100%. So common to feel like, it's almost like a people pleaser thing where like you have to say
Yeah.
yes to everyone and you can help
Yeah.
everyone and everything. And then you find yourself in a position where you've said yes to, helping someone that's doing bodybuilding, helping someone that wants to lose 100 kilos, helping someone that wants to do a triathlon.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways you can take nutrition and training. And if you're suddenly, like if you feel like you've got to say yes to everyone and then you find yourself sitting there going, I'm suddenly doing all this work that I don't even
Yeah.
really like doing.
Yeah.
Then you can build resentment. You
Oh,
can just, you
completely
do want to tap out.
misaligned.
Like
Yeah.
that's where it can really come undone. So
Yeah.
I think always bringing it back to like, again, you start business because you want to do that thing. If you didn't want to do it, you could stack the shelves in the supermarket. And no shame to that. If people want to do that, that's what I mean. Like you started your business for a reason.
Yeah.
Don't lose that.
Yeah. Great advice.
Yeah.
Now, this podcast is about money, business advice, and tax. Without disclosing too much of the numbers behind the scenes, Ruby, how do you use your finances to continuously grow your business to be the success that it is?
Yeah. Well, I do have a great accountant, Teeks.
The profit boss.
Yeah, check her out. But I think, and I actually do think, not even being funny, I think that is really beneficial because before I found you, I would just go to an accountant at the end of every financial year with a pile of shit. Be like, can you help me with this? So finding someone, like having Teeks in my business all the time is so beneficial to anytime there's any sort of big financial thing, or even like I said, when you are doing insurance and they want the profit and the loss and so many things they want, having someone that actually knows the money side of your business better than you do is so beneficial. Yeah. And so I think that's cool. But I'm always very mindful of the money, more so in terms of, any big money we make in the company, we pump back into the company. Yeah. I'm not making big money so I can go on a shopping spree. Yeah. Anytime we sort of look at our year and think like, what are the big things we're going to run in terms of big programs and therefore big cash injections at that time? Yeah. And then how do we line that up if we are going to do podcasting every week, if we are going to, we're building a new website at the moment. Yeah. So anytime you're doing something big expense, I sort of, reverse engineer and think, okay, well, where's the big income going to come from to match that? And I think I think I'm in quite a sweet spot where I'm mindful of it and I sort of keep it going in a nice trajectory. And then I tap in with you and be like, how's it actually going in the finer details, Teeks? Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're excellent at being in tune with the numbers. I think a lot of businesses can sort of fly on off the radar and be like, oh, I don't really know. Like, I'm not even really sure what my bank balance should be. Is it this? But yeah, you do make a plan at least about, when you're going to spend this based on those big injections.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I've always been like that. And then since having employees, I think you just are so mindful, like somebody's wage is dependent on this. Like I'm not going to just wing it and hope for the best because you're essentially hoping you could pay that person every week. And I just don't think that's a fair thing to do. So.
No, there is a sense of responsibility with that side of things. Once you're a business owner, you're responsible for someone else's literal life because that's how they pay for their food and their bills, and they're super fun too. So
Yeah. So I think it's just always being mindful of sort of what's coming in terms of expenses and then how are you matching that in terms of what you're going to run next and sell next.
Yeah. And I really liked that you sort of touched on like we're not making profits to like go on a shopping spree. I think in business it can be this misconception that is why you're in business, is that it's to make money to then have fancy car, fancy designer bags, this fancy house. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting those things and working hard to get them, but I've also seen the downside of that where people can get caught in the trap of like the first dollar of profit they make, it's ripped out of the business and it doesn't really leave the business with much to succeed and continue growing. So
I
lifestyle
feel like
creep.
That's like quite a short-term mentality.
Absolutely.
Like, I always think to myself, do I still want to be doing this work in the next 5 to 10 years or whatever? And again, I think it's a sweet spot of like, I'm employed by my own company. So like, can I pay myself a nice wage to just live the life I want to live? Like I said, I'm not trying to buy a mansion or a Ferrari or anything. It's just like, can I pay myself a nice wage to live the life that I want to live? And then I bring it back and go, and can I do work that I really enjoy doing to pay myself that wage? And I think that really is a sweet spot. And then anytime we do something big, and anytime you sort of get that big cash injection, I always just think straight away, okay, well, are we building a new website? Like, that's perfect. We can pay for that. Or do we lock in another 6 months of podcasting or whatever it is? And again, I think when you love the work and you love the business, that's actually really enjoyable and a good thing to do, because I think, well, now we get to podcast for another 6 months. Or now we get this big shiny website. So it's exciting.
Yeah. And the longer I keep reinvesting in the business, the longer I get to do this. Like, you would be looking forward to go, I'm creating it in a way that's sustainable, profitable over the long term. Yeah. Not just like these quick hits. Yeah. Where then you're just scrambling to get through the next week. So I've definitely seen both sides to that. So Ruby's on the side of being, more sustainable. Yay. Now, I've come across a lot of online coaching type businesses, or even just online businesses in general, where there might be the likes on Instagram, there might be the followers across different, social media platforms, whether that's, TikTok's popular now, and YouTube, podcasts, the likes, and having that online platform doesn't necessarily always translate to profits and monetizing that as a business model. Like, it's not an easy task to take that from an online following to a profitable business where money's coming in, expenses are still less, that you are left with something to live off. Have you learned a lot along the way, and like, what did you do to get Eat Like Ruby to a profitable stage?
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I feel like I would have so much to say about this. I feel like when I started Eat Like Ruby, and I used to work in the gym and then slowly transitioned online and did both for a while and continued to build the online. And that's how I sort of transitioned into it full time. And when you start doing that, everything's quite like one-on-one and personalized and everything. And that can be great. But then you do hit a point where if you're doing things in a one-on-one capacity, it's quite capped. Yeah. And then you hit a point where it's almost like, well, it wouldn't make sense to continue to build a following and especially invest in something like a podcast. If you really think about investing in the podcast, and then a lot of people listening and going like, oh my God, I resonate so much with what you're saying. Can you help me? And you go, no, I can't, because I'm fully booked for the rest of the year. Yeah. It's shitty for them. And it's all like, it also comes back to, well, why are we putting time, money, energy into a podcast?
100%.
To bring people into the business, but we can't help them when they get here. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Yeah. So I think you just sort of have to look. And some people, I personally don't love that real one-on-one coaching style. I love to educate, and I think you can do that in a way like a podcast, or in our main program that we run, the Fat Loss Phase. There's so much education. It's basically private podcasts that they get that speak to like directly what's happening every week. And then we've got a big group of girls all pursuing fat loss, and they're all helping each other, and it's awesome. So some people love that one-on-one style. And then if that was you, you would almost look and go, well, is it worth investing in things to continue growing? Yeah. Too big, like it doesn't really add up. So that was just sort of something that I'm always mindful of, is, does it make sense to do the things we're doing based on what we're selling and what we're offering? And another thing that I'm always mindful of as well, because obviously these days there's so much hype around your following, and your engagement, I think, is a big one at the moment, and how many likes and how many views and all those things. And it's so funny with Eat Like Ruby especially. That's something that I've really had to become aware of, and not even accept. I feel like accept makes it sound like a bad thing, but we have so many women in Eat Like Ruby that are mums, or they're just that little bit older, and they're not that generation that are really active on social media. Yes. So we can have 200 people in a program and do a post that gets 10 likes. Yeah. And I think a lot of people would look, oh my God, I only got 10 likes. And I mean, we probably get more than 10 likes, but we can absolutely have more people in a paid program than we have engaging on a free post, which is so crazy when you think about that. All you have to do is double tap on that one. And over there, like, it's a big investment of time, money, and energy. Yeah. So I think a lot of people would look and go, oh, well, if engagement is low and views are low and likes are low, that's means business is going to be low, but that's not always the case for us.
Yeah.
And I think it really does come back to having so many people, even if we think about that lady I said before,
Yeah.
following every single thing for years, losing 27 kilos. I didn't even know she existed till she
Yeah.
joined something.
Yeah.
Yet she's taken on board every word I've said
Wow.
for 3 years. So that's a big thing for me, because I think when you do work in the online space, you can kind of get caught up and be like, why is engagement down, or why are views down, or whatever. But then I always sort of bring it back and go, well, it's not a direct translation into how the business is going at all. And also just being mindful of how many people do reach out of nowhere and go, I've loved everything you've done for 2 years.
Yeah.
And part of you wants to be like, well, can you chuck us a like once in a while?
I need feedback every now and then.
Would it kill you? But I think that's happened too many times. Like for me to now just be like, there are so many people out there watching, listening, learning.
Like that is the truth.
Fly
like
on the
you
wall.
know that people are just sort of quietly consuming your content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously the overall growth of those things is great. And I mean, if you've got, I think we have about 40,000 followers on the Instagram page. So if you had 40,000 or 400,000, obviously there's probably more flies on the wall when you've got 400,000. So the overall growth is awesome. But I think, it's definitely not a direct correlation as to how the business is going.
Yeah. And then still on that note though, with these people that are quietly consuming, that would be your motivator to show up every day on Instagram. Like that's not an easy task every single day to show up and post something.
Yeah.
But even despite what the likes or engagement might look like, you knowing that there's people that are watching out for that, that surely is your day-to-day like motivator.
Yeah. And that's actually so true, because I can look at things and be like, oh, that post didn't do well at all. And we can post something that goes off and gets 500 likes and then the next thing can get 27 likes.
Yeah.
And I always, again, I think it just comes with time and experience and maybe a bit of maturity and everything. But I think in the initial stages of business, you can really get caught up in that stuff.
100%.
But for me right now, and it's a really conscious thing where I just go, the post didn't do well, but the business is so much more than that post.
Yes.
Like, would we stop posting because one post didn't do well? No. Would we not run the program? Would we not send the emails? Would we not record the next podcast? Like, we're on such a bigger trajectory than, oh my God, that one post didn't get enough likes.
Like, we're beyond that.
So, and again, you almost come back to, well, what am I going to do? Tap out and go and get a full-time job somewhere else? Like within one day, I'd be like, shit, what have I done? So it's always coming back to like, there's so much more why behind this than just how many likes did we get.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I think in 2024, like you're speaking to a lot of business owners here of like, it's more than that, because in 2024, we all have to be on social media, like in one way or another. Yeah. And that is just part of it. And we've just got to not take that as gospel of any feedback we get off that, and just know it's all part of actually being a business owner now.
Yeah, for sure. And I always think about that, because with the business that we have with nutrition and training, there's obviously quite engaging content we can make. Like we can do recipes, workouts, whatever, and people actually want to see that stuff. I always think about a business, if you sold like curtains or carpet or something, you could have a really, really profitable business. Yeah. No one really cares about looking at carpet on Instagram. So they probably have a really small, like shitty engagement Instagram page. Yeah. But a booming business.
Totally.
So I just think, there's so much more to it.
Yeah. Love it. Ruby, as a little bit of a wrap-up question, we probably have already sort of touched on it, but what does managing your finance in business look like on a more day-to-day, week-to-week basis? Just for any new business owners that may be listening and thinking tangibly, like, what do I need to do? What does that look like?
Yeah. I think, this is probably music to your ears, but like my first thing straight away, I kind of do all of our finances every Monday. So like paying myself, paying employees, and I have automatic transfers of money going into a different account for tax every week, super, all those things. Yeah. Because I think, I don't think, we know, like those things are coming no matter what. Yeah. And so I think anytime we do something big and we sort of step back and go, oh, okay, we had this big sale or this big thing, then obviously you want to look like, do we need to move a bit more money for those things? Yeah. But just in that week to week thing, I think even just for your own sake of peace of mind and enjoyment and
Yeah.
being less stressed.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you don't want to, I never want to be like playing catch up with tax
No.
and things like that. And having you be like, Rubes, you're a little bit in the red. And, do you know what I mean? So I always just, that's always a priority to me is like pay the employees, put all the money aside for those things. And then you just sort of look and go, okay, where are we at? Like I said before, are we a bit ahead? Do we pay off something that's coming up? Or are we kind of just treading water, holding steady for a while? Like don't go buy anything too crazy. And I think just always being on top of it. And like I said, being aware of those bigger things, but then also just week to week really looking like, how do I just keep on top of it for the week so I don't end up in a terrible position for my sake, your sake, employee sake, business sake.
Yeah. Take responsibility of it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's my question. So thanks for coming in today and talking with me all about business.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
If anyone's listening would like to check out Ruby, I would highly recommend her Instagram page. So it's Eat Like Ruby. You will find that there's lots of Nutella content because that is Ruby's favourite food.
Yeah, and my dog's name.
Oh, it's all Nutella.
Like we said, I go all in.
Yeah, you found your niche. It's Nutella.
It really is.
Which is fantastic. And so, she's also got a podcast and YouTube. And if you are also looking for a coach, you're famous for the fat loss phase.
Yep.
And that program has helped so many people around the globe. So if you're looking to sort of, also go all in that journey yourself, it's the right place to go. So check Ruby out. And thank you very much for listening. I will be back in your ears very soon.